Hello and welcome to this video. In today's video we are going to watch 15 years of WoW versus 1 year of Final Fantasy XIV with Jesse Cox. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. This video has been recommended over on my Discord, where you can also go and recommend me watching react to videos. Yeah, this is a little bit of a longer one, but I thought we could have fun with it. Yeah, so let's just get into it. Bear in mind, I've only played Final Fantasy for, I think, 3 months. So, please cut me some slack, because it's all very new. New to little me. And with that said, let's get right into the video.
Over the last few weeks, I've started to notice a lot of familiar faces from the World of Warcraft community taking another look at Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes.
So today, I want to talk about the differences between these two games, that while sharing many similar concepts, diverge in their execution of the MMO genre. As a fan of both games and 15-year veteran of WoW, I've often thought about this subject, as I now play through Final Fantasy XIV on a near-daily basis since August of last year. I frequently get asked to compare the two, and the simplest way I've been able to do so is the following. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, while Final Fantasy XIV is an RPG MMO. What does this mean besides hopefully sounding clever? In Final Fantasy XIV, the entire creative process, the direction, the core concepts, all of it are approached from an intrinsically different design philosophy than that of Warcraft. So it doesn't mean you can't enjoy both, it just means they're made for two very different gamers. Let me explain. I think most people have an understanding of what an MMORPG is beyond any sort of...
I get it. I actually have a lot of opinions about this, because even though I've only played Final Fantasy for 3 months, I have been playing WoW for 5 years. So I come over from that side of the camp, so I do have a lot of opinions on this. If I should guess, I know, let him speak, but just to tell you what I think this means. An MMORPG, I think, in reality they are both MMORPGs, but I think, like he says, trying to be clever, MMORPG, it's the MMO first, and then RPG, which I play on Argent Dawn, RP, I think it's called. I know it's called, but now that I'm sitting here on the spot, I get nervous. And that's more like you roleplay on the RP servers, but you do not see roleplay on any other servers. I think it's called something Moon something on others, but it doesn't matter. I can see if that's the point he's going to make. And Final Fantasy, it's the RP first and then the MMO. It makes sense.
The definition. There are expectations as to what that experience will be, which is why after playing Final Fantasy XIV, I've come to call it an RPG MMO. Because while all the multiplayer elements are there, I believe they aren't entirely necessary. If the MMO were removed and all we were left with was the RPG, the story, the music, the gameplay, it feels like the player would still have a complete experience. This is because the
I don't know if I should say this. Okay, I'll just because it might be me. I have like 5% telling me that it might be me. I started toxic, I'm sorry. RPG, role-playing game, MMO, mass multiplayer, MMO. Mass multiplayer online. So that MMO just means that we are a lot of people online playing together in a big world. And RPG means role-playing game, so that we can role-play in the game. Okay. I don't know if I got my point across there, but I'll just leave it there and let's see.
Team behind Final Fantasy XIV, from its inception, has put its focus squarely on storytelling. This design choice then influences every other aspect of the game. From characters, to world building, to music, to animation, all serve to enhance the storytelling. It is without a doubt the single most vital aspect of Final Fantasy XIV. Everything comes from the story, everything is related to the story, and everything exists to service the story. So as we move forward in this video, you'll see every time I bring up a comparison or idea in Final Fantasy XIV, it's going to be in some way related to the story. And it's because of this one fact that Final Fantasy and WoW can still feel similar to a player moving between the two, but also be vastly different experiences. Let me just throw this out there. What was the story of vanilla World of Warcraft? If you had to think, it's because there was no story. There were quests, there was lore, certainly different adventures to get involved in.
Interesting thought. Because I do really think that he has a point. Because, let me tell you this. The game is based on the books. And I know you might be thinking, the books is based on the game. No. And I know this for a fact because I have looked this up because I have been in heated discussions. So, it's the books the game is based on. So, that is why they cannot put all that lore in the game. I think they can actually, but they have decided not to. You can play the game without watching any cutscenes. Like the cutscenes it's just to navigate you further in. Why are we fighting? Whatever. Why are we fighting Sylvanas? Okay, she burned down Teldrassil. Tendrassil. Right. I always get it mixed. Teldrassil or Tendrassil. Oh, you know what I mean. The big tree. So it's nice to have watched the cinematics, but can you play it without? Yes. So I get what he's saying. World of Warcraft, like, if you want the lore, you should read the books. That's at least how I see it. Like, I play WoW because I actually don't play WoW to progress in the story at all. I play it because I like role-playing. In the sense that being a dwarf in the city of Stormwind, going around and being silly, or like I just love events, being a little druid, hopping around and being silly in the woods and stuff like that. I that's why I play WoW. That's why I'm really looking forward to try and play an MMO where it's the story that captivates me, because I love the WoW story, but I really love the WoW story. But I think Final Fantasy is going to give me, you know how I'm a big Berserk fan, and I have read Berserk. I've not watched the anime yet. I'm watching Seven Deadly Sins. You know, they cannot compare. Let us be real. But I view this as, I like the story in Seven Deadly Sins. It's cute. But Berserk, like, you could not tell me anything. And I have an idea of Final Fantasy being my MMO Berserk.
But no overarching story. There was no driving force behind what you were doing, besides the desire to gain levels, abilities, to see what's around the next bend, or explore the next zone. The story of the World of Warcraft was what you, the player, made it. It was trying to find the right Zevras in the Barrens. It was sneaking into the undeveloped Mount Hyjal. It's trying to raid the enemy capital. Those were the experiences we remember. In fact, the most recent example of a great WoW memory I have is getting the Alliance Horde Slayer title and that achievement in BFA. The whole point is that you kill enough enemy players.
Let me just be real for a second. One of the best thing I love personally in WoW is the war in World of Warcraft. I love it. I love going up against each other. I hate the lag though, Blizzard. But I love it. It's such a fun thing to cooperate with other alliance trying to get that horde scum. Ugh. I love it. It's fun.
Players to literally be marked on the map as a bounty, and then people try to come kill you, and if you survive long enough, you get an achievement. It was one of the most exhilarating recent memories I have in the game. I loved every moment of it.
Me too.
In Final Fantasy XIV, if you ask someone their favorite moment, and I did, almost every single person is going to say theirs is related to story. Obviously, this isn't every player, as many players find the same camaraderie and accomplishment as WoW players.
I'm trying to not take anything in, because... And I'm not sure I'm right, and I'm not sure you should tell me if I'm right. But isn't this the twins that is sitting next to the man who drinks in the start? It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't know what they're doing. I have also seen them, and I don't know it for sure. But it also looks like them in the ads, so I'm trying not to take anything in that can spoil me.
When taking down harder bosses. But for the majority of players, the story is not just an important part of the game, it's also something that binds the community together. With that said, after years of playing WoW, to say there isn't a fan base for the world or story building they're doing would be foolish, as I am one of them. But let's be real. The majority of players simply do not care about the plot of Warcraft.
Sylvanas,
I'd
I'm
have
a
to
big
guess
stan.
that's because it was never really the driving force of the game that got them playing in the first place. And more
Muscle your dog. Wasn't it your muscle your dog, your majesty? Epic cinematic. I love Sylvanas.
importantly, sticking with it. The fact is, as Blizzard moves more towards storytelling in their more recent expansions, they've developed multiple ways of getting across major plot information to players who may be interested, but it's not integral for the player's enjoyment. It's this delivery that provides the necessary surface-level context to keep a player engaged, but has also formed a complicated relationship with players who do enjoy story and world building in Warcraft.
True.
Team leads and devs change, shifting the vision for each expansion to fit what is essentially the rule of cool. While main story beats are planned ahead, it's very clear that things have changed or will change based on necessity. Main characters vanish, story elements are left behind, and lore is retconned to fit with the moment. As a big old lore nerd, years of that have definitely left me kinda jaded when it comes to WoW. A silly example is years ago at BlizzCon, I asked the devs about that weird snaketail and Gundrak. I was like, what is that thing? Their response then, and ever since, has pretty much been, we really don't know. Perhaps it was snuck in, perhaps it was dropped content, who knows? All I can say is, if it was in Final Fantasy XIV, that snaketail would not only have had a purpose, but it would have shown up 2 expansions later as an important character in an ongoing story.
I love that.
Yep, this is going to be one of those videos that's long enough to be split into multiple parts. But it's good, because it allows us to dive a little deeper. When it comes to content, both games feature the staples of the MMORPG genre to differing degrees. Leveling, dungeons, raids, PvP, special events, grinds, and daily quests. In fact, some on the 2 dev teams are friends, and they definitely borrow ideas from each other all the time. Yoshi P, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, is notably a huge Blizzard fan. The difference of
No, he's amazing. I just watched the video with the I cannot remember Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 in a nutshell. He's amazing.
time. Yoshi P, the director
Look at him.
of Final Fantasy XIV,
I love it. It's amazing. I want a scythe like that. No, I want to look at that while I make videos. He's literally amazing.
is notably a huge Blizzard fan. The difference, of course, comes
Really?
from what the dev teams have decided the focus of their game should be. The best way I can simplify this is to say that Warcraft is more about the destination, and Final Fantasy XIV is more about the journey.
The journey.
As an
yes.
example, in WoW, the leveling process in, say, a new expansion is a buffer between you and max level where the real game starts.
Yeah.
I was once told by a friend that he always thought of it
Definitely.
as advertisement.
Big
or
point.
places that later on at max level you'll spend time grinding. Once you've leveled up, you can begin doing harder dungeons, farming gear in Mythic Plus, running raids, joining PvP battlegrounds or arenas, and doing your daily quests or grinding rep.
Yeah.
And for years, this has not
Lots
only
to
been a
do.
pretty standard MMORPG cycle, but WoW has been the best at it. The goal, of course, is keeping players engaged and logged in. And going back to our original story discussion, doing most
Which I like. I just don't like dailies. I don't like to have to log in. I want to log in because I want to.
of these things continues the Warcraft story as well. In Final Fantasy XIV, it's a bit different. With the story being the most important part, this means leveling isn't just a rush to max level to experience the cool parts. The cool parts are the leveling. At max level, there are certainly raids and dailies and grinds and PvP, but they're nowhere near the complexity of WoW.
I'll be honest with you. I have been terrified about this because I really like playing Final Fantasy. I also like, of course, like to play WoW, but I like playing Final Fantasy for the channel. But I'll be real with you. I have been scared. Like what do I do? What is endgame? Because I like doing things, like I like doing the grind. I like being able to go in and mount farm and role play and maybe do a little side questing or something like that. But it sounds like when I've been through the main scenario quests, that's it. Like, what are we going to do on the channel? I will be real with you. I've been scared. And I know it's so silly because I literally just played for a couple of months, but it's just, I don't want the good things to end. That's what it's about. And honestly, with my pace, I do not gotta go fast. I'm not Sonic. I need to be chill and relaxed and cozy. So I think, to be honest, we are many years from that. And I'm sure we will be okay. I'm an anxious person and I worry a lot. So let's continue.
Leveling up a job in Final Fantasy XIV isn't just about the leveling process either. Sure, and while you can level up an alt, experience the other faction's story, and a lot of people enjoy that. But in Final Fantasy XIV, each job has its own story and quests associated with it. They're varying in size and scope, but like the Dark Knight, for example, is universally loved.
It's the one I want! It's the Guts! Guts! Can you see him? He's right there. And my books, right there. And I want a tattoo, right here, with the Dragon Slayer. I'm serious. When I can afford it, I'm going to get it. Here. I want it on... Actually, wouldn't it make more sense to have it here on my right arm? Like the Dragon Slayer. So it makes so much more sense, but I already have my little wolf. So I could have the Dragon Slayer here. I'll continue.
For being some of the best storytelling in the game. But again, story is what it's about. Most large-scale raids only have one difficulty level and are more events than actual team-building struggles.
I'm afraid
Those
of
raids and trials that do have harder modes are canonically fan fiction versions of the events, so players who are just there for the story won't miss anything if they don't have time for harder content. PvP, while vibrant, is nothing close to that of WoW. Reputations and dailies exist, but not in a way that forces the player to spend a significant amount of time investing.
How would PvP work in Final Fantasy? Because in WoW, we are two factions like Horde and Alliance against each other. It makes sense. So when I see a Horde, I will just fight them. How would, is there a war in Final Fantasy I don't know about? Please don't tell me then if there is. Don't say anything. I would love to know. I have seen one bad guy. He killed a guy. The blonde man. So maybe there is a war. But can you be their faction though? Don't tell me. I'll continue. So many things.
In them. But you're rewarded in a way that makes it feel like you're kind of getting one over on the devs for the amount of time you actually put into it. Let me give you some specific examples. Let's talk reputation grinds. Admittedly, in WoW, I haven't played much beyond the start of max level content in Shadowlands, and this may be different, but if we look at most reputation grinds, it's usually something along the lines of like, you earn 750 rep a day with a weekly bonus of some sort, and you need 40 to 50.
Oh god, that reminds me of when I tried to farm the crane. The crane you can get in Pandaria. Oh god. Also the horse. And then they went and made another horse that looked exactly like the same. You know, the 100 rep thing. I cannot remember anything, the name of it. Heart something. Blizzard has never disappointed me more than... that's not right. When they changed the drop chains on Sharvanger, the Komodo dragon, Sons of Galeon, and the Triceratops. Also the Love Rocket. And they changed the name of... As you can tell, I have a lot of thoughts on Blizzard and World of Warcraft. And I cannot wait to the day that I get to know Final Fantasy as much. Let's get into it.
50k rep to reach Exalted.
Continue.
So you're looking at, over a month of rep farming to reach max reputation. This, of course, is part of the design philosophy again to keep you engaged in the world longer. In Final Fantasy XIV, while some of the older reputations are pretty similar, the newer ones, take Pixies for example, are designed not only to be fast, but to feel very rewarding. Every day you get 3 quests that take roughly 15 minutes to complete, and as a reward, you get tons of reputation, tokens that you can eventually buy rep items with, and then loads of experience. I'm talking like a quarter of your XP bar for 3 quests. And this is great because not only does it make grinding rep easy, but it also rewards you for doing it on one of your other jobs, incentivizing you to level additional classes. Let's take another example. Unlocking flight. In WoW, unlocking flight has always been a process. A thing that you really had to earn. Currently, I think to unlock flight, it's something like getting Renown 44 and completing the last sigil and having completed Chapter 12 of the Covenant campaign.
Yes.
Receiving memories to unlock account-wide flying, and then you can do it in Shadowlands. In Final Fantasy XIV, while exploring the map that you're already exploring anyway, you use a compass to find little green wind orbies, and when you find them all and you complete the area story arc, you unlock flying for that specific zone. It's not account-wide, but it's easy enough to get just by going through the leveling process. From a design standpoint, I love this.
I like it.
When I first learned this is how you got flying in Final Fantasy XIV, I was actually angry about all the time WoW made me waste. In Final Fantasy XIV,
every time I hear about flying, I cannot stop thinking about Asmon talking about his mom, and she was so fed up with the flying. I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. Something with her. She didn't want to unlock it in BFA or something like that. I cannot remember. I just remember how she didn't want to do it anymore. And I got the sense that she was a pretty hardcore World of Warcraft gamer. So that should tell you a little bit about how annoying it is. And it doesn't make sense at all. I like this idea with you exploring the map and then you get flying. It makes sense because you have been all around. Or maybe go to the Griffins in the different places. And when you have talked to all the Griffins, you get flying. It makes sense. Make it make sense, Blizzard.
you get to experience the zone, which is what WoW's trying to get you to do, but 14 doesn't gate your ability to move through it quicker in the future behind some sort of grind. Which has probably got a few of you now thinking, Jesse, you're making it seem like you don't have to work for much in Final Fantasy XIV. But of course you do. There are things like fancy relic weapon grinds and stuff like that, but not nearly to the degree that WoW makes you grind out stuff.
It's also too much. Let's be real. Like, the focus is not right. Like, I want to explore there are places on Draenor I haven't even visited yet because I haven't had any need for it. I haven't leveled an alt from 1 to 60, I guess. Is it 60 now or 80 or what? I haven't done that. I haven't leveled all the way through myself. So I haven't had any need for it. But if I could get an achievement that could do anything like unlock flying, I would do it. I would just run around and do it.
Honestly, I think we're so used to Blizzard making us go through content multiple times for months in order to unlock something like flying that anything less seems ridiculously easy. But that shouldn't be the case, gang. I don't know anyone who enjoys it, but we still do it. It all just comes down to the fact that the Final Fantasy XIV devs are not trying to keep you in their world for countless hours. So it seems like everything is a little easier. The fact is, the 14 devs have literally said they don't care if you log in every day. Get what you want from their game, come back when you want more. Instead, the grindy bits of Final Fantasy XIV are something entirely different. I recently saw this ad for Final Fantasy XIV, and it made me laugh, because I've never seen anything like this for WoW. But most Final Fantasy XIV players will tell you this is where the majority of your max level adventure lies. Look at this thing. Gathering, crafting, free companies or guilds, housing, fashion, the gold saucer, which is like a permanent version of the Dark Moon Fair. And I'll be honest, this is pretty much endgame in Final Fantasy XIV. That's not to say 14 doesn't have challenging content for those looking for a more traditional MMO raiding experience, but like, the point I'm trying to make is that in WoW, the endgame focus is on harder and harder raiding and mythics, PvP, both arena, battleground, and world, with all the other things in the game existing to aid in doing so. In 14, the endgame focus is more diverse. Although there are savage and ultimate difficulty raids designed for those who want a more challenging experience, there's also things like building a cool guild house, or crafting a special weapon from a weird boss drop, or going on treasure hunts. There's more to do than just raiding for the sake of raiding. Speaking of crafting, one of the biggest issues I have with WoW is that crafting for so long has seemed totally pointless once Looking for Raid was created. Any gear you could craft, say as a leather worker, was useless for those who could just get raid gear easily. Meanwhile, in Final Fantasy XIV, gathering and crafting is...
I've used it once, and I spent, I think, 200,000 gold on my alchemist, I think, because I wanted to make the blood-gorged baby pet, baby crawl or something like that. I'll insert it on the screen. I spent so much I spent so much gold on that pet, and I had to hatch it, and I kept getting these silly, stupid chickens. I love chickens, and you know that should tell you how annoyed I got from it. I kept getting black chickens, the same chicken over and over and over again. The baby croc, I remember now. And then I finally got the baby croc, so I love him. He is and will always be my baby boy.
Very much a major part of the endgame experience. If you're curious about other things, PvP for example, I mean, in this case, WoW definitely wins this one. There is PvP in Final Fantasy XIV in the form of war games, and there are many people who enjoy it. It's just that there's a wider variety and larger community in WoW. It is, after all, part of the core concept, faction warfare. This doesn't exist in 14. There are no warring player factions. In fact, much of the story is about getting all the nations of the world on the same team. The funny thing is, as WoW attempts to add more story, the PvP they're doing makes less and less sense narratively. And that's, I mean, just the tip of the iceberg of the endgame experience. There's a lot more to talk about, but since we are talking endgame, I think we should flip it and do the starting experience. Going back to the design philosophies of the two games, we can see differences in the premise of each and how it affects your intro into the game. In World of Warcraft, you start your experience as just one of the many faces in service of your chosen faction. Over time, you're...
So true! Like, I know I'm yelling into the mic, but it's so true. You start with being this small, like, small town, city, helpsman. And all of a sudden, you are fighting gods and titans. What? Blizzard!
Actions and defeating various threats increase your importance to the world. In Final Fantasy XIV, you are literally the warrior of light, the chosen hero from moment one. There is no denying your importance to the story. The entire narrative revolves around you. Even though initially you're not recognized as such, I mean, that's what you are. Quickly proving yourself to the world. From that point on, every character not only acknowledges you, but they recognize the importance of your role over theirs. So add that to the story being the most important element, and you'll see how this might be a daunting task for some new players. Much of the 14 starting experience it's pretty slow. World building, character introduction.
Yes, different. There they are! That's what I talked about.
I actually think this is one of the biggest problems Final Fantasy XIV has, as it's a hard sell to explain how phenomenal this game becomes only after you put in 40 hours. But that's exactly what I was told, and what I have told others. Because it's true. The strong connection to narrative hurts the starting experience, especially for new players who may have friends playing or seen an amazing moment from a recent expansion, but they can't play it themselves without playing through 100 hours of story or paying for a skip and finding themselves completely disconnected from the plot. And that is a real shame, because the game uses all of that story and setup to build out the rest of the world. So if you skip over the starting experience, the amount of stuff you miss is mind-boggling. And because the story is so well told, and all the characters and locations and
Can you boost in Final Fantasy? I didn't know.
Etc. are so perfectly fit into the puzzle that is the main plot that when twists happen, they make perfect sense. When reveals are made, it's like, oh yeah, of course. All because of that level 1 through 50 experience laying the foundation. And as I've said, I've experienced both ends of this. Years ago when the game first came out, I gave it a shot, and around level 40 was totally burnt out. It wasn't until I returned last year looking for something new that I gave the game a second chance on the recommendation of a friend. I'm so glad I listened, because for a fan of story like me, what this game offers is a fantastic experience. Sadly,
I cannot wait.
Behind Final Fantasy
I'm the same way.
Slow start can be traced back to its origins as a reboot of the disaster that was the original Final Fantasy XIV. The budget was small, the timetable was short, and it shows. It isn't until the later patches of A Realm Reborn and the release of the first expansion, Heavensward, that the game truly shines.
There he
The production
is!
value skyrockets, the writing is less long-winded, the voice actors change, just about everything is better than where it started. And universally, everyone acknowledges this fact, which is why I assume the free trial, with memes and all, includes Heavensward. If you're gonna keep playing the game, it's the first expansion that's gonna get you.
No, I wanted to read it. I wish all non-Final Fantasy players a very pleasant free trial of the critical acclaimed MMO now, including Heavensward, so you can play for free until level 60. Should I bet he's thinking of another woman. I like that. I love those. Should I tell her about the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy that has a free trial up to level 60? And I think you should. Honestly, I think you should. And why do people keep telling me to play critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy 14 that has a free trial of include expansion? This is kind of fun. Why is the music so good? Why are the characters so good? I'm okay. I will let you know that I am very sensitive and I cannot wait. I'm such a lore, like, I don't know, fanatic. I love a good story. I cannot wait.
It's Heavensward. If you're gonna keep playing the game, it's the first expansion that's gonna get you. What's totally insane about all of that is only by sticking with it can you then truly appreciate the slow burn A Realm Reborn was and all the ideas it introduces that later become very important. It's like when your parents gave you some advice as a kid and you didn't listen, and now you're 30 and you're like, damn, that was good advice. I should have listened. But again, how do you sell that to people? Meanwhile, the WoW starting experience is much more welcoming to new players because they keep updating it and changing it. A thing Final Fantasy XIV can't do without damaging the plot it's trying to set up. Because Warcraft doesn't concern itself with this. They now offer multiple ways to level, a special starting zone designed to teach new players. They have streamlined the process of getting your character to the end game, which...
I just have a thought about that. I don't know if I'm repeating myself, but I really think what WoW is doing right is the RP thing. I keep saying it, but it's, you can just jump right in and play, whether you know about the story or not. You can be your character. I really love it. I also really like Final Fantasy. I'm not saying anything about that, but I love that I can just jump into the WoW and just be myself and go around. But it's on Argent Dawn. I get that. Not on the other servers.
As we discussed, is a core design philosophy. But this means, depending on when you started playing, your story experience in World of Warcraft could be entirely different from another player. Some moments I may have experienced years ago are no longer in the game, making it so things that bind players and keep them engaged in the game are not story, but its progression systems, guild dynamics, and faction conflict, which I think explains why people enjoy playing Classic, as it has all the things I just listed, but also a shared sense of existing in the same world, which I feel like I think many of you would say
that's what I'm trying to say.
The current iteration of WoW does not have. Another way to look at this is how new content is delivered. If we look at the two most recent completed content cycles in both WoW and 14, the picture we get of everything I've been talking about becomes more clear. In WoW, the new content starts with the release of a trailer, a big budget, stunningly well made, sometimes shocking reveal. It's usually a way for Blizzard to show the first major inciting story moment. This is something like Sylvanas breaking the Helm of Domination or Deathwing destroying the world. Then, before launch, there's a book and maybe some short stories about major characters involved in the next expansion. We'll get a pre-patch event, and then the expansion will release. And for the most part, every WoW expansion follows a similar formula. We get a short burst of main story before pausing for leveling content and eventually returning to the main plot. Then a major raid is released, and the story for the main plot continues as we get a series of patches culminating in the last patch of the expansion and the showdown with the big bad. The cycle begins again with a new trailer. Because of its heavily story-based nature, almost all of the content in 14 is delivered in-game. So in the previous expansion's fourth major patch, you'll get hints of a new story. By the time the fifth major patch rolls around, you'll have more information, important details or new jobs will be hinted at, And then, around the same time, we get the trailer.
New jobs.
Unlike WoW, it's not a single moment, but a series of vignettes and a hint of things to come in the next expansion. Then at launch, the main story is experienced and completed throughout the leveling process. The first major patch and so on are there to wrap up loose ends, tell new smaller stories either via raid or a series of max level trials, or introduce new areas that serve as a way to grind out special weapon skins. And then, by the end of the third major patch, the story of the expansion is wrapped up. And then the fourth patch continues the trend of hinting at what will be in the new expansion. So once again, I'm sure the obvious difference comes down to the initial design choice by the two dev teams.
Yeah.
The reason the Warcraft patch cycle is what it is to keep players engaged longer. So if you're a fan of story, for example, you need to keep with it through all the patches to see the end. While Final Fantasy XIV, designed to deliver story most of all, gives you a completed one at launch, then adds additional adventures afterwards.
True. I like that, actually.
The most notable difference in gameplay between the two, I think, is to start, the global cooldown in Final Fantasy XIV is 2.5 seconds. So when you're level 10, for example, and you only have 3 abilities, it seems like there's a lot of downtime. Later on, as you unlock other off-cooldown skills or increase your stats to lower your GCD, this changes, but for the start, it definitely feels pretty slow. This also translates into differences between the spell and ability rotations of the two games. Warcraft is more reactionary. Build up a bar or wait for a crit to trigger an ability, while Final Fantasy XIV
actually, I don't know, but a shaman.
More proactive, where the player weaves a pattern of combos together to create a string of pre-planned attacks.
It was, actually.
Even the procs in Final Fantasy XIV are associated with patterns and planning. Combat in WoW is like a street brawl, and Final Fantasy XIV is like a dance. And because 14 is more of a dance, the combat is more spectacular, and the spell effects are way more flashy than those in WoW.
I'm very nervous
spell effects
about
aren't
that.
necessarily designed with
I'm
large
not
groups
good at
in mind,
remembering
unlike
things.
Warcraft. So when you're in a 24-man raid and all the effects are going off, it can sometimes feel blinding. So much so that there are options in 14 to decrease or turn them off for other players. Speaking of making changes to the game, 14 has a pretty amazing HUD customization in the base game. While you can do a lot more with the various add-ons in WoW, 14 gives you enough tools to customize your experience so that you don't feel the absence of add-on support. This UI customization allows for the use of a controller, which the game was designed with in mind, allowing for cross-platform play between PC and PlayStation. This allows for some pretty fun player interface options and looks, letting you clutter your screen with as much information or as little as you want. And we can't forget about the accessibility of players who simply can't use a mouse and keyboard. Accessibility can be found in 14 in the form of universal language on markers and effects. I'm sure that as you've watched this video, you've noticed in the Final Fantasy XIV segments the same markers on the ground over and over and over again, to the point where players can have some idea of what's coming their way based on the effect. They understand what's about to happen and what's required. Another major gameplay difference, which is probably what we should have started with, is the ability for one character to play every job or class in the game and switch between them. If you choose Black Mage to start, for example, like I did, and you end up hating it, like I did, then you can switch to another job and try something new. Fall in love with something new, like a Red Mage, or a Warrior, or a Dragoon, like I did. And 14 is designed with this one character leveling multiple things in mind. WoW, on the other hand, is...
It's so weird to me because I have one main, and that's Duravia. I love Duravia, she is my main. She's an elemental shaman. To imagine her being able to swift between druid or demon hunter and the specs within that, mind-boggling. Like, I don't need my hunter then. I don't need my hunter Vilmira then anymore. Imagine her being, imagine being able to just shift between them. Just like that. It's weird to me to think about, because I can honestly remember them all. I have my hunter. She's a beast master hunter. Her name is Vilmira. I have Duravir, who is my elemental shaman. I have my demon hunter, whose name is Mankiller. I have 2 horde characters, a rogue and a shaman. Aloy and... I cannot remember because I don't play horde. I can remember, if you give me a little bit of time, all my characters alts, because I gave them backstory and lore. So to think of only have one in WoW, or have the opportunity to just do whatever I want with it. I think that's honestly why people are having all those alts, because at one day they want to play a druid because they want to be able to do everything but not be good at anything, and then they want to become a rogue because they are doing PvE, and then they just want to do quest fast, so they slither their way through with I cannot remember anything. Stealth. To be able to do that, it would be a game changer. Like, if you could do everything. Wow. It's a funny thing because I never actually thought about it that way.
Is designed around having to create multiple alts to try different classes. But unlike 14, each of these new characters has some sort of racial ability or special action, and 14 doesn't have that. It doesn't mean you can't level alts in 14, but it's unnecessary to experience all the game has to offer. Warcraft does, however, have more overall combat diversity, with the option to choose talents and spec out your character in fun, weird ways.
But it's also very
heavy
PvP based.
Also, the classes in WoW seem more wild and vibrant compared to that of Final Fantasy XIV. There are no Demon Hunter or Brewmaster analog, for example. It does have a Blue Mage, but it's treated as more of a joke class with wacky overpowered abilities that isn't really allowed in current content. Also, WoW really nails raiding and PvP. It's what the game was designed for, and they do it very well. The raids in WoW are larger and more intricate, the PvP is more varied and complex, but Final Fantasy XIV does something very fun with its dungeons, raids, and trials by including synced, unsynced, and minimum item level settings. You can change the difficulty of a dungeon, for example, to be exactly how it was when you first ran it in your low-level gear, or to cheese the hell out of it at max level. The last thing of note is that when crafting or gathering, 14 is much more visual and complex than WoW. It's not just clicking a node. They're actually separate jobs, separate skills, separate stories, and separate gear that you can play without ever doing the main story. Although you'd need it to unlock some zones, there are whole events built around using these crafting and gathering jobs. Building a city, for example. And as I mentioned before, crafting actually makes viable gear, unlike WoW, whose crafters are mostly useless once people can do looking for raid.
It really is.
You're going to get tired of hearing me say it, you probably already are, but story plays a major role in the aesthetics of 14 versus WoW as well. Both games look very good, let me be clear, but they each have their own visual style. WoW is slightly more cartoony and exaggerated. Everyone has giant muscles, even the fat dudes and the gnomes. 14 is a bit more subdued in all regards. Even the colors are more toned down. Some might call the character designs a bit anime. Meanwhile, the WoW character designs are more diverse than 14 as well. Trolls, undead,
people
humans,
hate
pandas.
or hated the Volcaros.
In 14, it's more like human, tiny human, cat human, horny human. The biggest difference I've noticed comes down to 14's emotive characters.
Oh, I actually have a question. This one. Is it a goat? Is it a dragon? I have thought it was a dragon, but maybe it's like my Draenei. I haven't read it. I don't even know if I have it unlocked yet, do I? Maybe. What is it? Is it a dragon?
The biggest difference I've noticed comes down to 14's emotive characters and WoW's wider array of visually diverse zones. These emotive characters make it so 14 can easily work in numerous in-game cutscenes and match the voices. In order to do the same thing in WoW, custom-crafted scenes are made, which take time and limit the number that can be included. That's not to say that Warcraft characters can't show emotion, or Final Fantasy doesn't have visually diverse zones, but each does their thing better. WoW can get more wild with their visual design because they aren't limited by players on older consoles. The PS3 version of 14 was still available until 2017, which means the PS4 version will be limiting players for a few years still. Because its limits are fewer and the devs can update and change their graphics more frequently, WoW can create a more wild, outlandish, and visually striking environment for players to explore. And because 14 was started with storytelling in mind, characters' faces are designed to show a wider array of emotions. WoW, on the other hand, added story after the fact, so the game wasn't designed to have a lot of close-up facial animations. So as they add new in-game cinematics, many of the ones we're getting now seem to have these weird flappy jaw yapping things going on. And that stands out from the other higher quality cinematic stuff we're used to getting in WoW.
True.
The music of these games is also another thing worth pointing out.
I love the music in Gridania.
Again, is a perfect example of my original thesis. Like the graphic design of the games, they both have good music. But similar to WoW's visual style, Final Fantasy XIV's musical style is far more diverse and wild and fun. In Warcraft, music is mostly ambient, used to set the mood of a zone or a dungeon, usually something catchy, repeating, and not all that intrusive. But many times, because of its generalized nature, there are moments where it might not fit the events that are on screen in an epic boss fight, for example. There's plenty of times I remember struggling through a raid to get to the final boss, and the music was pretty much the same as when I started the raid. Meanwhile, in 14, because the music, like everything else, is connected to the story, it's more moment-to-moment than WoW. Again, it's not like WoW doesn't do story moment music, or Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have ambient zone themes. But
is this Dark Souls?
They both do their own thing way more. Final Fantasy XIV has musical themes for sad moments and happy moments and silly moments and tense moments. It sometimes even tells a story. There are theme songs and
I cannot wait.
And, more importantly, battle music.
I love music. Oh. Commencing attack. What? Transformers. Listen. I cannot wait. Wow.
It's just so good.
Really
Nothing makes
good.
wiping or learning a fight more tolerable than a catchy song in the background. Truthfully, Final Fantasy XIV just has a larger variety of music and uses it better than WoW. Which is
attention
crazy,
to detail.
because I remember listening to the soundtrack for WoW Legion and thinking how great it was, only to find out there were some songs not even used in the game, or if they were, I don't remember or missed it. I recall multiple versions of Anduin's theme, only for him to barely be involved in the main Legion storyline, and his theme to show up like maybe once or twice. That's so crazy to know they have all this amazing talent at Blizzard making music, and they don't even use it all? And remember Elite Tauren Chieftain? Final Fantasy XIV has a band of devs called the Primals, except they don't just do meme songs, they play like all the hits from the game, lyrics and all, and let me tell you, they got some bangers. The difference is, while ETC was phased out of live events, the Primals are the highlight that everyone looks forward to. It's as if the WoW community thought ETC was kind of lame, and Final Fantasy XIV fans are like, more Primals, please.
Community.
So there's one last thing to talk about, and I'm sure it won't be controversial at all. The community.
I had the same thought.
I've been in the WoW community long enough to have formed a pretty substantial theory about it. I know I'm going to get lots of crap for this one, but
I can't wait.
The general notion is that it's pretty toxic. Yes, your personal guild might be awesome, but generally, I think we can all agree there are high levels of toxicity in the WoW community.
Yes.
And I believe this stems from the nature of the game itself. WoW is based in conflict, a game where two factions are pitted against each other from the beginning, so players already have an established enemy or other to focus their ire on. It is thematically ingrained in the community culture. And not only is player versus player part of the game, but so is competition on a PvE level, with world firsts and server firsts and more at a macro level, and then tools like DPS meters at a micro level to determine who is the best in the current party. Everyone is judging everyone at all times in Warcraft.
I just need to say this. I don't know if he is going to bring it to the table, but they're two different games and they attract two very different people. Let's be real. If you imagine a WoW player and you imagine a Final Fantasy player, you are seeing two completely different types of persons. the average WoW player, how to say this, is, let's let him talk before I say anything, because he might have let's let him talk.
It can feel overbearing. Even WoW's more cooperative events can seem like competition between players. As players are in the game longer and learn more and think they know more, biases form, opinions, valid or otherwise, take root, and soon the forums are littered with waste. You know, toxic. 14, at least in my experience, has been different. And it's hard to explain because, sure, there must be toxicity in the community. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. And maybe that's streamer privilege. Maybe it's just I'm very lucky. I don't know. But most people, if you ask, will tell you how nice and wonderful and kind the 14 community is. But it's also jarring. If you're a WoW player coming to the Final Fantasy XIV community, there's a lot to understand that's different. Let me give you a great example. Rare mobs, or in the case of 14, ranked mobs. In WoW, if you see a rare monster, you find a way to kill that thing as fast as you can, you grab friends, you grab guildies, you want that special drop. In Final Fantasy XIV, that's frowned upon by most of the community. I found this out one day when I saw a rare and asked my free company, my guild, for help. And they were like, dude, wait for the hunt train. And I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? It's right here, right now. And they explained, that's not how the community does it. When all the rares are finally spawned, hunt trains form, and like 100 players move from zone to zone, killing them, each getting credit for the kills and any sort of rewards. This idea baffled me. I was like, I am here right now. What if I'm not on?
How often do they spawn?
Line later. I have to pass up the kill just cause? And they were like, yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but having done multiple hunt trains now, I understand it completely, and I actually prefer it. It's almost like if WoW had this same concept, I may have actually seen a time-lost Proto-Drake once or twice. Warcraft eventually had moments like this for Nashtadar and Mechagon, but it's not on the same level. This camaraderie in the 14 community translates to how they treat new players for the most part as well. Sprouts, as they are lovingly called, are new players with a little icon next to their name. Normally, one would assume an icon next to your name letting everyone know that you have no idea what you're doing would seem like you just got yourself a scarlet letter and became a pariah. But in Final Fantasy XIV, it's the exact opposite. Instead of trolling or treating them poorly, most players cheer them on or offer advice and tips in dungeons.
Truly.
It makes it easier to understand if someone has no clue what's going on. You can instantly see they're new, and it's okay. In the game even...
I'm not joking. I have started leveling a couple of characters, and when you start a new level character in WoW, you will get killed constantly from higher levels. Like, you will get camped. I'm not joking. I have had at one point 3 players continuously killing me. Like, I had to log off and get back to it the next day because I was just so done with it. The amount of love I have gotten since I started this channel playing Final Fantasy, it's insane. Like, crazy. It has really made me give this game the biggest chance in my head, because I was really coming from WoW. We have a lot of ideas of what Final Fantasy is. Let me just say that. And it I wasn't expecting much starting out, I'll be honest with you, but it has grown and is still growing into something big. Like, I can feel it. We are going to have so much fun. And none of the things I thought originally is, at least not yet, like what I thought it was. So...
and rewards players with bonuses for having them in your group. And that's what I think is so special about the community in 14. I've seen plenty of players try new classes or a build or whatever in both WoW and 14. And people can get intimidated about being yelled at for sucking or not knowing something. But in 14, that little sprout icon lets players know immediately that you're newer to the game. So they have an expectation that you might not know some things. And it makes it easier to ask, which is honestly the biggest problem in WoW. New players are always afraid to ask what to do. Yep. Just as an example of how this mentality rubs off on you, I was doing my 14 roulettes or dungeon dailies and got the final Omega raid. When it popped, I was in a group of almost all Sprouts. For those of you who don't know, this fight is what you would call a complicated dance. We wiped a lot.
Aww.
And in my guild chat, I was cursing up a storm. I was so upset that I had to go through this thing that I thought was going to take me 5 minutes, but I'm here at like minute 30. But in party chat with the Sprouts, I was like, we can do this. Come on, I'll teach you how to do this fight. I've often thought about what Sprouts in WoW would be like, and the only thing I can think of is that it would mostly be people dropping from parties that they showed up in. Again, this isn't to say the Final Fantasy XIV community is perfect. Obviously, assholes play all sorts of games, but the general nature of the player base seems a bit more relaxed. Yes, someone will tell me I'm doing something wrong while I stream, but that's every game, for everyone. The biggest difference, I think, is the Final Fantasy XIV community does not tolerate a lot of the stuff that WoW does.
Yeah.
The crackdown on bad actors is swift and immediate. And some of you may be like, well, that doesn't sound cool.
It's crazy how fast they turn to bad mouthing. Like, it's crazy.
I guess for the people who don't want to deal with that stuff, it's pretty cool. I don't know. The last big takeaway I have on community is this. The WoW player base seems always ready to attack their game, even while loving it. And the Final Fantasy XIV community is always trying to defend their game, even if it doesn't need it.
True. Conclusion.
So you've made it some 30 minutes into a YouTube video and you find yourself here. This was all just sort of a long-winded way of saying again what I'm sure I made clear in the first 5 minutes, but I really wanted to expand on the differences between WoW and 14 and how there are players who like each of these. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Sure, there's definitely going to be something I missed or couldn't find a way to fit in the video. That's what comments are for, I suppose. So please, if you have something to add or additional thoughts or insights, or if you think I'm way off, let me know. This video was done out of love for both games and the knowledge that each has its own audience, and it's okay to like one and not the other.
True.
I hope the takeaway is that if you enjoy story games as much as I do, you'll check out 14, and if you can care less, you're probably already invested in WoW, and I don't see why you should leave. That's what it comes down to, at least for me. Anyway, thanks so much. Thank you to all the amazing patrons who make videos like this possible. Please, if you like this, share it with your friends. Or give it a like. That'd be swell. I would love it if you would consider subscribing and hit the bell and do all the things that, you know, you have to do on YouTube in order to see a video these days. But that's it. Thank you so much. And I will see you in game.
In the next video. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Jesse Cox's video. I loved it. It is an amazing video. So much to talk about. In general, I'm agreeing with him. Please go leave a like and a kind comment. Maybe tell him that you are from LilCozyGamer's channel. Yeah, I don't have so much to say actually because he rounded it up. It's funny to hear him talk about it a year in because I'm still so new. I'm still nervous. I still have so much of WoW in me. And I'm not one of those who is toxic at all, actually. I'm almost too nice, to be honest. So I come from a kind of a different... I'm not saying that he was. I'm trying to say that I'm still new and I'm still carrying a lot of WoW weight with me. So what I'm taking from this video is that I cannot wait to get further into Final Fantasy because I'm a big sucker for lore. I'm literally a big sucker. I love it and I cannot wait. So thank you so much, Jesse, for this video. And if you're new here, please consider leaving a like. And also, if you like the video, like. If you like the video, like. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. That's the right one. And yeah, with that, I'll just hope to see you in the next video. You may stay cozy. Bye-bye.